back to another episode of the One of Us podcast. We're so excited that you're here today. I look forward to chatting with you all about your thoughts on being a roommate. So what that entails, some biblical encouragement, some practical tips, some life experience that we've had, and just how to honor God and one another through being a roommate. So I think all of us have been roommates at one point in time.
Hold on, have you been a roommate?
He's my roommate.
That doesn't count though because you're married. That's different.
They're just a permanent roommate.
Yeah, he's just my permanent roommate that I have to share the same room with. See, that's a little even more.
Yeah, and I've seen that room. It's questionable.
No. Oh my gosh. So what comes to your guys' mind when we're trying to just, I guess, provide encouragement in this area?
I will say, as someone who has had many roommates, 2 of them being in this podcast at the moment, they were probably the most difficult roommates I've ever had. And I say that in all joking terms. Tati and Crystal were my best roommates. I absolutely loved living with them. Okay, so I'm a bit of an introvert, and if you know Crystal, she's not an introvert. So there were moments where I'd be like chilling in my room and Crystal would just barge in. But honestly, I loved it. And even like Tati, I loved barging in her room, or when Tati was in the kitchen making food and she would ask if, other people would make food. Or I remember for Easter, she made like probably 100 Cuban sandwiches. That was probably more so me pushing that because I really wanted them. And I ate them for lunch for like the next 2 weeks. And it was totally worth it.
Give her a whole bag of pork already made.
Dude, it was so good. But yeah, I'll say roommates are great. I will say I've had some very questionable roommates, and I'm sure we'll dive deeper into that. But, with everything, there's always good. There's always bad.
Without going into specific details, what makes someone a quote-unquote bad roommate, or like maybe not a successful roommate experience?
Girl, when they're nasty. I'm going to tell you right now, if they don't clean... Okay, I'll say this because my last roommate experience, they would cook a bunch of food and then not clean it. And we had like a huge maggot infestation because of it. So I think that would qualify as a bad roommate, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So
I guess that's our first tip. Be clean.
Yeah,
clean
if you want to be
yourself.
a good roommate, yeah, just be clean and put the food away. Don't leave it out for like 2 or 3 days. That's it.
Do you think one should try to be friends with your roommates?
I think 100%. If you're living with them, engage with them. Because otherwise it's kind of weird if you just come home and you never socialize with your roommate. It just kind of feels like a person's there. But rather, that's a good opportunity to make a friendship. And sometimes, I know Tati and I, some of our roommates that we've had, or suite mates or whatever, have not always been Christian like we are. But it's always a good opportunity to, share the gospel, share the good news, or just engage in fellowship with other people. So I think you definitely should.
So, I mean, I think that's a good question. Like, do you think you should prioritize having Christian roommates over non-Christian ones? Or do you think it doesn't really matter?
I wouldn't say yes or no, but I think as a Christian, you need to be careful, because if you're inviting someone who isn't Christian, like, you have to ask yourself, how did they live their life? If they're a chill, mellow person, whatever, like, it's a good opportunity, but you don't want to get stuck with someone that maybe is a partier, a smoker, or they just, inviting a bunch of random people into the home where it can, you can lose the peace within the home. So I'd be cautious about just the type of person, but I wouldn't completely knock it off the table, because I feel like it is also a good time to share the good news, but you want to make sure that whoever you're inviting into your home and that you're going to live with is someone that's going to help keep the peace and is going to be respectful.
Yeah, I think having some ground rules are kind of important. I know we kind of did that. And serving one another too. I think when COVID hit, that's when I went on my like cleaning frenzy, and I was cleaning the you guys remember when I was cleaning the living room and kitchen literally every single day?
Well, you had to do that because our other roommate, Hope, got COVID. So yeah, we had to clean that boy. We were not trying to get sick.
It was when I was working remotely and no one was home. I just like cleaned everything every day. Things like that. I think serving one another helps a lot with the roommate situation.
And I think, to point towards your earlier question, Tati, for 2 years, I had non-Christian roommates. And then for the other 3 years, I had Christian roommates. And there's obviously a difference. I think each season was special in its own right, because one is an opportunity to like minister to other people through how you live your life, right? And how you serve, like what you're saying, Tati, how you honor one another. And then in the other sense, being with Christian roommates, I think there's just like a safety and like a peace and like, I don't know, it's like the coziness that you feel of just knowing that like you're understood, you're on similar paths, you have similar values, et cetera, et cetera. So I think both can be a special time and a special season. And there is a Bible verse that came to mind, and I had to look it up real quick. It's Romans 12:18. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And so I think that really goes to show what you guys were talking about, right? The importance of like the peace of your home and the peace of your environment, right? Especially with those that you're living with. And I think it's so important. I say this all the time in my personal life, but I always encourage people, keep your side of the street clean, in the sense of like, regardless of what other people do, what they say, what they don't do, you be the good roommate, right? Specifically in this topic. But as the Bible verse just indicates, whatever you can do on your end, live at peace with everyone. And I think that would include especially the people you're living in close quarters with.
I think there's something so special about having kind of like Christian roommates and having like a Christian space, because you can really serve other people too, you know, like how Vic mentioned, for Easter we had people over and I made food. I know we did movie nights. You can really kind of use your space to like glorify the Lord too if you do have Christian roommates.
I actually remember our movie nights because I think you got a projector, Tati, but we would go into the upstairs living room, turn off all the lights, flip the couches around because we had this one blank giant wall, and we would just project it there. We would like order pizza, get a bunch of snacks, and honestly, like those are some of my favorite memories, and those were really good memories too. And we did that a couple times. We do movies, or we did our Korean like arcade dramas, and those were always so much fun.
I think it's so special too to be able to bond together just as roommates. I think something as simple as that can really like bond you guys together and be like, this is our spot. This is like how we can welcome people into our home, right? And be hospitable in that way too. There's so many opportunities.
I think it's great for fellowship too, because even if you don't like have a bigger, you know, space like the dorms, Vic and I lived in the dorms for a really long time before we moved out. It's nice to know that you are going to go home to someone too that's a Christian. And I know like with Vic, we would always like be spontaneous and be like, oh, like want to go to Cane's or want to go to the cafeteria? And we would use that time to really fellowship with one another.
Roberto's.
Those
carne asada fries.
I literally was thinking about them the other day, and then I hung out with my like church friends and they were like, let's go to get Mexican, and I got them carne asada fries. And then do you remember, so off topic, but do you remember when we went that one time? I don't know if that was with you.
Girl,
and like
you said one time. We went all the time. We gotta be
no,
specific.
there was one time. I don't know if it was with you or with other people, but I'm sure I took it home. We ordered the carne asada fries, but they gave us chicken. They like double chicken, and then they said, oh, we did it wrong, so you can just keep those two. So we got 4 orders.
I don't know if that was with me, but if you went into Roberto's with a different roommate, we're gonna have a discussion.
It wasn't a roommate, it was probably another friend. But
honestly, the only thing I remember from Roberto's is one time we went there and we witnessed 2 car crashes. So that's the only contribution I have to Roberto's. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I actually have a question because we've talked a little bit. It's been more of like a fun, lighthearted conversation. I think we've acknowledged that having roommates, whether they're Christian, not Christian, is a great time just for fellowship and community. But Juan and Crystal, this is for you two. You guys are permanent roommates. Let the people know. How is it? What is it? You know, Juan, you just shared that you've never had a roommate. So how has it been from going to no roommates to a forever roommate?
I don't know. I think it's cool, right? I appreciate having Crystal every day. I mean, that's why I married her, right? Because I wanted her to be a part of my life. I think the transition for me was really easy because we had been such great friends. And I think that's what makes the living situation great, even if you're just a Christian living with a bunch of friends, is if you actually take the time to spend quality time with the people you live with, it'll make that experience that much more greater. I don't know if you have anything to add, Crystal.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it was kind of a smooth transition for me as well, just because I have had a lot of roommates. I shared rooms with, you know, my sister, with you guys and stuff. And I'm a people person. Like, I love being able to sleep in the same room as other people. I would do that normally. Like when I came home from college, I would just go into my sister's room and be like, I'm sleeping with you. She'd be like, what is wrong with you? And she's younger than me too. So I think it was just a seamless transition. Like Juan and I didn't live with each other before we got married, but it just felt like normal and natural. But I think it's just learning how each other works. I think I'm a little bit more like flexible, like go with the flow, just because I think that's something that you really learn when you have roommates is like you don't control the whole world, you don't control the whole space. Like this is a space to share. And I think that's really helpful too, just in understanding like what God has given you, right? Like this apartment that Juan and I live in, like God has given that to us. And so we want to share that. But I think it's been, I guess, a cool kind of transition for Juan and just learning each other's like living quirks, I guess. But it's been pretty
I want to
great.
shout out Crystal right now because, Chris, there was one day there was a spider in my room and I was terrified and I literally just bombarded your bed and just slept there. I don't know if you were there, Vic, but I said, Crystal, there's a spider in my room. I can't find it. I'm sleeping with you tonight.
I remember that. I thought that was so funny. But I think that's such a special, part about living in close proximity with people that you get to call friends and ultimately sisters is it's just those moments. They're fun.
Okay, so I have a question. Like I said, we kind of have been given like the rainbows, unicorns side of roommates, but has there ever been or have you ever had a bad roommate where you guys were kind of just like butting heads or maybe not getting along all the time or just it was rough? What was that like and how did you guys resolve it to not lose the peace within the home?
I had an experience with someone, we were growing in friendship. A way that I really liked to just interact with my roommates that maybe I didn't know too well before we became roommates, or maybe did, but they didn't share the same values as me, is really just invitation. So inviting them out to what I was doing with other people, trying to gather with them, because I really just wanted to get close with them as I was growing close with other people as well. And I think people always appreciate an invitation, but there were instances obviously where values didn't align or we didn't see eye to eye, and I always tried to like address those like as soon as possible, right? In love, and obviously that wasn't always received or understood, especially when there's roommates of different faith backgrounds, right? Because they don't always understand kind of where you're coming from. But luckily, things didn't kind of fall apart until towards the end of being roommates. But I would encourage people to maybe, if you're having a difficult time or a disagreement or different values when it comes to your living space, to really just obviously meet that conversation with love and just understand that people, there's two sides to every coin and two perspectives to every situation. Yeah, just to address things up front. Don't address every little thing, but if things are big and that would kind of impact you and your peace, to like address those, right? Because sometimes we may just be seeing things differently or misunderstanding one another.
All right, what's your guys' take? So I was looking up kind of like what are the most contentious things surrounding roommates. So the one of the top three was food, sharing food, rules around food, and I kind of want to know what's your guys' take on that, and also any advice you have to share.
I feel like people could really throw hands when it comes to food. We got a bunch of hangry people in this society.
I think everyone's different, so it just depends on what you guys mutually agree on. I know we kind of bought our own stuff and we split more of the general house things like toilet paper, paper towels. I don't mind kind of like cooking for others sometimes. I know sometimes I made dishes. I made arroz con pollo a couple times and gave Vic some. It just depends. It really depends.
I think as a general rule, like know your people, right? If it's people you don't really know yet and you're getting to know, maybe just like kind of be a little bit more cautious. Or a good rule is like ask for permission, not for forgiveness, in the sense of like ask for permission if like you want to share or you want to like give or receive or whatever that looks like when it comes to like food or other items, rather than being like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize you cared about X, Y, and Z thing, because you don't want to start off on a bad foot in that area. But if you do know the people and if you create kind of guidelines or expectations beforehand of like, hey, as for me, I'm chill with X, Y, and Z thing, or maybe, hey, I want to keep this more like individual, just setting those expectations kind of beforehand, I think is important.
Yeah, it depends because like condiments, you can share like the mayo, mustard, but don't be drinking Vicks chocolate milk.
Yeah, that was a big no-no. I still love my chocolate milk in the morning, okay? Don't judge me. But back in Reno where we used to live, everyone would come over to our house, and we had these two friends, Jake and Eli, and for whatever reason, they would always drink my chocolate milk, but it wasn't like a gallon, it's a half. And they would literally suck that thing dry, and then I'd go to get breakfast in the morning and there's like 2 drops. And so yeah, I just would have a discussion like, hey, I don't mind if you guys are drinking this, but can you just replace it so I don't have nothing to drink in the morning, please? But yeah, it honestly, just communicate, I think, overall.
Want to emphasize they were not our roommates, they just happened to come over.
Yeah, they just came over and ate our food, so that was, yeah, I was definitely throwing hands over that. They were not contributing in any way.
Something else that we did that I think was beneficial is I think we did, I don't know if we did this the whole time we were roommates, but at the beginning was the shared calendar of people's like schedules. I think that was helpful to kind of be like, oh, I have these 30 minutes right now. Let me go do the laundry. Let me go cook right now because I know 3 other people are coming home in an hour and a half or whatever that looks like. So that might be beneficial for you guys as well. But really, I think being roommates is such a great ability to really love your neighbor as yourself. So I think some of that could be kind of obvious or self explanatory, but even in this area that we're talking about in terms of like cooking and timing and stuff, just being considerate, considering others higher than yourself, and just being more selfless. What is your guys' experience, or how were you able to emulate forgiveness as a roommate? Because I think of Colossians 3:13 and 14, which is bear with each other and forgive the other if one has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And so, how were you guys able to kind of express that within this context of being roommates?
I'm still struggling with the roommate that left maggots in the house, so no, I'm joking. Being able to forgive, it can be hard, but you kind of, there's this one verse where it's like, don't expect to receive mercy if you're not willing to give mercy. Meaning, like, don't expect to get forgiveness if you're not willing to give it back. And here's the thing, you're gonna encounter a lot of really hard and difficult people. That's just life. Again, we are that representation of Christ in that image, and the best thing that we can do is to offer forgiveness and to still preach and be a good representation of who God is, even in times of difficulty and with difficult people.
I think forgiveness is a good topic, Crystal, just because living with another person causes a lot of tension. We all know from living with our own families. So it's natural to think that when you live with another broken person, sparks are going to fly. I think that being a Christian and you're surrounded by other roommates that aren't Christian, you kind of have a mission there. God placed you there for a reason. Try to be the light and the salt in that space. Don't try to add more fuel to the fire. And if you're lucky enough to have a ton of roommates that are brothers and sisters in Christ, my prayer would be you guys would be adults. You guys would practice what's said in the Bible and share your guys' grievances and kind of work for healthy boundaries around your living space.
Yeah, I think too, even a believer does room with other believers. Like we all fall short of the glory of God, and we're all sinners, saved by grace. And so to even have mercy and grace and forgiveness in those spaces, because it isn't going to be picture perfect, and there are going to be moments of like, okay, this is a moment where we need to compromise, or hey, this is a moment where I need to be heard, or I need to hear, right? I need to have ears to hear. I just think it's so important to really be slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen. I think that's such a great value and something that I learned a lot just in that season of being roommates, because I really think it's so beneficial for your life moving forward, because it's like basic skills that you need just in life is like how to problem solve, how to communicate, how to have that interpersonal communication and move past grievances and forward to just reconciliation and unity. So I just think it's good. I think if you have an opportunity to, try to be roommates, because I know sometimes people think living alone or being by yourself is like good, and that can be good for a season too, but there's something special about being with one another.
Juan, do you wish you would have had like the roommate experience during college?
Sometimes I feel like I wish I had the dorm experience because, like, it was kind of sad when it would get nighttime and I'd have to drive home and you guys were still hanging out super late at night. I was like, bro, that sucks. So I feel like I missed out on a lot of unique experiences, but I still feel like I had a great experience with everybody. I will say that I felt like I was an honorary roommate because the amount of times I was over at the Bowman house, which was the friend's house of the girls. But yeah, it was a great time. I always read that most people today, obviously they can't afford to buy their own home. Like, I think I read somewhere that the average age for a first time, or the average age for a home buyer today is 55 years old. So most people are actually either they bought a house and they're like rooming with other people, or they're bought a condo or something. What do you guys think how that plays a role with adults now? Like, do you think that's a smart option if, like, let's say you're much older and you're like, hey, I have to roommate with people? Some of you guys are still roommating with some people. Like, technically, Tati, you're at home with your parents. That's still roommate with them. And Vic, you're with your sister.
I think it's different though. I think it's different when it's family versus, with people that are not blood related.
Why is it different? That's something I wanted to talk about. Like, what are the similarities and differences that we can take from, I guess, this conversation for that space as well?
I think for me, like, it's still my parents, so there's still that authoritative, like, figure. So it's not like I can just do whatever I want. Like, if I bought my own groceries, I don't know where I would put that thing because it does not fit in our fridge. And splitting up the space, like, I can't just invite random people over. I need permission. So I mean, in the sense of roommates, depending on the situation, it's kind of similar. Like, if you want to do a party, you obviously want to respect your roommates and ask. But there's plenty of times I've invited people and didn't say anything because it was also kind of like I paid for the space.
I mean, my sister, we grew up sharing a room all the way up until high school, until she left for college. So I mean, I would say it's different because I've grown up with her. I have always shared a room with her. I never had my own room. So for that part, it's easier because I was born into that family. So we kind of know how we work. We, know the dynamic, but rather when it's a roommate, when it's someone you haven't grown up with and it's a random person, they're coming from a different family, a different culture, a different background. And so now you're taking these two different things and putting them in one house. And so now you have to find new ways of communicating and working through things and finding a new way for the house to function and run.
Okay, look, guys, if I had to pick a roommate, like, let's say this was like I didn't marry Crystal and had to move out, these are my top 3 questions I would have to ask someone. 1, are you a morning person? 2, how often do you clean? And 3, actually, I'll rephrase that. I'll say, do you clean your bed in the morning and do you do chores? Or maybe do you just clean your bed? So the first question, what was my first question? Oh yeah, are you a morning person?
Clean your bed
And
or make your bed?
make your bed
Why does making
slash
your bed
clean.
matter if they're not in the same room as you?
You wouldn't know, Crystal. Okay, so make your bed and wake up early. And I think the last
Juan, you
thing
don't even
is
make your bed.
I do make my bed.
No, you don't.
I made my bed this morning. Tell
He
Crystal.
made it this morning. He did.
Is that because Crystal was already out of the house or what?
Yeah, she was out of the house.
It makes sense now.
Okay, and then the last question I'd say is if they have a hobby. And I feel like I would ask those 3 questions because 1, I am not really a morning person. So if they are, that's just going to wreck my morning. And 2, I'm pretty clean. I feel like I do a lot of chores around the house. So if they can't even do their bed, we're probably going to fight. And then
Come on.
the last thing
Are you
is,
going to go into their room and investigate or what?
no,
Okay,
it's just
actually,
like
this is a good point.
if they don't clean their room, they're probably not going to clean anything else.
This is a good point. There is a difference, Juan, between sharing the same space, like the same room, or being in the same kind of like thinking of a house, but separate rooms. Because what if they're not that clean in their room, but they're clean all over the house?
I have not seen that yet, but if they are, more power to them. But the last thing I think it's really important is a hobby, because if they have no hobbies, then I know that I'll always expect them at home.
Do you feel like roommates are good accountability?
I mean, your roommate probably knows a lot of things that you're up to. So, like, if you use them as accountability, that's like a really good resource. But I've always found that accountability is only as good as the person is willing to receive it. So, like, even if the person's like, oh my gosh, like, I want my family and all my best friends and everybody I know to be my accountability, but it can't be received, then it doesn't matter.
That's true. I was just thinking like that could be a good opportunity, right? To have people that are in close proximity to you who you can say, hey, keep me accountable to like this thing or being home by this time or working on my assignments in this way or calling this person, whatever it looks like.
My favorite thing about having roommates is how we would prank each other. Those are just like the most iconic moments.
See, you gotta little bit on the edge. You gotta have some spontaneity. Pranking is a good way. Obviously, know your audience. Even if they're kind of mad at first, like Tati, I feel like some pranks maybe you were kind of annoyed at, but looking back like 5 years later, you think it's funny, and I know you do.
Anyways, what I'd like to say is thank you everyone for listening. If you guys have any, roommate horror stories or any pieces of advice that you're looking for, please let us know on the comments below or just DM us directly on our social media. We'll love to give you some advice or any resources that we have. But I believe you all know what time it is. It's time for Tati to give us some hot takes.
I just want to know. I know like our living situation was more of one direction, but do you prefer cooking for yourself or cooking for others and with others?
Hands down for myself.
I prefer cooking with others. For others might get dangerous, but if I'm with others, I'll get some of their expertise and the meal won't be as bad.
I'm the type of person who's like, if there's too many cooks in the kitchen, the ideas go rampant.
If I cook for other people, I'm more inclined to try something and really put in effort because I want it to taste good. But here's my beef with cooking.
Then why is everything you've ever made us taste bad?
I've only made you one thing.
Exactly, and it was bad.
No, it wasn't. It was the shrimp muffins. Those were good.
Oh, I thought it was the when your shell was in the food.
That was hibachi. That was hibachi night. Okay, that was more of a joke. That wasn't. First of all, that was all frozen food. Okay, I was just trying to keep people alive, entertained during COVID. Okay, that's besides the point. Don't bring that up. But my beef with cooking, I don't mind cooking. I just don't like the mess that comes afterwards.
Okay, what if you cook and the other person cleans?
I'll cook all day, baby. I just don't want to clean it. I have to do one or the other. You can't ask me to do both.
I'd rather clean than cook.
But when you cook for yourself, you have to do both.
That's why I eat pasta.
That's why she just ordered Shake Shack, which is what she's chewing on right now.
Vic, I feel like for the last 20 minutes, I've just
Vic.
casually seen you talk
Vic,
with your mouth
you've
open.
been talking with your mouth full this entire time.
Look, all I'm saying is this is where the roommate problems began, with Vic talking with her mouth open.
Hey, I'm hungry, okay? I've had a full day of work.
Ah, yes, cutting squares, wiping butts.
Hey, it's a lot more than that. Don't judge me.
I didn't plan a second one. I was hoping that maybe one of you guys might have one, but if not, I can look for another one. Vic,
your whole camera died. Did you choke and you just turned off your camera and almost died?
Wouldn't you want your camera on so we can warn somebody?
Just dead silence. Just dead silence. She's now ashamed of eating in front of the.
Up. How'd you almost threw up?
Did you get heartburn or something?
No, I just was eating, and I don't know why. In the middle of eating, and that's why I turned it off because I was like, I'm not about to have me puking on screen.
You guys, Victoria almost barfed on screen.
I don't know what happened. Maybe I was just munching too fast or too good on these fries. I'm gonna give them to Esther. Let's see if she throws it.
You were shoving those down your throat.
Okay, don't gotta make it sound like that. I was just munching on it. Jeez.
You were inhaling that burger.
Okay. No, I wasn't.
I've never seen somebody eat a burger so fast in my life.
I ate it normally. Oh my gosh.
Vic, one of your bites, literally, I can't wait. I can't wait for whoever's editing this video because one of your bites, no lie, Vic, was almost half of the burger.
Okay, anyways. Okay, all that being said, very interesting stuff. Thanks, guys, for listening. Let us know if there are any other topics that you'd like us to discuss or chat about. Make sure to just follow us on our platforms, and we'll be in touch and see you guys next week. Love y'all, and have a great week. Bye-bye.